Good morning and welcome to How to Love Living. My name is Jeremy, and this podcast is really just talking about how to navigate life in a way that gets you the most rewarding experience and helps through the different challenges, just gives you a different perspective on how to see things and work through things. And this week's episode is something that I felt pretty passionate about over the years. And the reason I feel passionate about this is because a lot of different folks, a lot of different books, a lot of different workshops, anything, come out and say they have the solution for you. And, I've consumed lots of those works. So I've consumed a lot of self-help type stuff. This could be from different self-help gurus to different spiritual books to, the classics like Dale Carnegie's books and that sort of stuff. And I'm not here to debunk them. I feel like I just want to explain a bit about my experience with them and kind of help understand, how they fit in and how they can work with you as you're navigating through life. So I think the first thing we kind of have to address is just talking about how we work with the challenges in our life. And primarily, one of the things I feel strongly about is I feel strongly that in our educational systems, in our approach to how we set up people for life, we don't do a lot of education on mental health, and we don't do a lot of education on how to work with emotions, how to manage emotions. From that perspective, we're very much in the dark ages, and it's something that is challenging because you have a bunch of human beings running around all over the earth, and all of them have varying degrees of education as far as working with thoughts and mental health and that sort of stuff. A lot of what you learn is dependent upon how you grew up. It's dependent upon genetics. It's dependent upon different components that kind of drive the person you are. And so what this leads to, these challenges, they lead us to a point where none of us are really alike. We have a lot of similarities, and I'm certain that all of us have come across a person who, matches our personality, and then we come across people that do not have the same personality. They may be prone to underreacting to things, or they may be prone to overreacting to things, or what have you. So in this world, it's kind of a crapshoot. And so one thing to be cognizant of as you're working through the self-help books is everyone's in a different place. And I would argue that some self-help books actually are for specific people in specific places. It's very difficult to get to a just generic book that can help you specifically where you're at. And that's why I would argue you would find self-help books challenging, because you got the wrong one, or you're not in the right space for the particular book that you're reading, and what have you. So some people will say, oh, I've seen a lot of success with this book. Well, they've seen a lot of success for this book because that's where they're at in life. And every person's response to that book may vary. Like the success you see out of that book may vary. And so when you're looking into self help, I think it's important to kind of understand the mental headspace you're in and be okay with the fact that the book may not work for you and it works for others. So, one other argument I'll kind of make here about self help books and self help in general is I think a lot of it, and even the source of this podcast for me, is I know I'm not going to hit like every single person exactly where they're at, and that's not my goal. My goal is if I can just connect with one person who gets help, if I can give guidance to one person, then my efforts are worth it. But when you look at just your kind of mental headspace and kind of where you're at, I think that part of it too is understanding like your background. So understanding where you come from, how you deal with life, how you were taught to deal with life, the genetic makeup that underlies that. So your family, is the temperature you have set high where you're always kind of happier, or is the temperature like your average temperature set lower? I heard an analogy that kind of helped me in understanding this, and I hope it might help you, is picture happiness in your mind. Like think of a time when you're really, really happy, and then think of a time where you're really, really, really sad. And then think of just like the normal kind of mode you're in. And so what I'll say is when you're really, really happy, that time when you're really, really happy, picture your mind as like a room, and you have an heater air conditioner unit on the wall. And that heater air conditioner unit regulates and maintains like a mean kind of happiness level, kind of where you would normally fit in when good or bad things aren't happening. And so, like, if the room heats up, or if you get really excited and happy about something, the mental kind of air conditioner will kick on and cool the room back down over time. And you can see that. Like, if you think of like a moment that you're extremely happy, you navigate back towards like your mean kind of temperature that your mind has you set at. And the same thing with sadness. So, if you get really, 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 really sad and the room cools down, then your mental kind of heater will kick up to bump you back up. And depending on a lot of different factors, it may take longer to cool you back down to where you're at the mean if you're really excited, and it may take longer to cool you or heat you back up if you're sad. And so understanding that about yourself, and I think that one of the things that is a struggle is this need to always be happy. I I think it's a novel idea, but I don't think it's reality. And that's one of the reconciliations you have to do is no matter what circumstances, no matter what happens to you in life, your mean happiness is kind of where the temperature is set. And so I think that from an emotional perspective, reaching that goal and getting to a point where you are in acceptance of that mean happiness level, and then working to kind of navigate life with that in mind, I think is really important. It gives you peace because I feel like our society puts a lot of pressure on people to always be happy. And I think it's endemic with social media and that sort of stuff where and this is why I'm not on social media as much. Like, it really kind of was challenging getting back into Twitter, Instagram. I'm not on Facebook at all. And the reason for that is this is our society puts a lot of pressure on you to present like the best self you can present out to the world. It isn't realistic. So an example of that is, I'll see a friend who's posted vacation pictures, which I love vacation pictures. I love to see kind of where everyone is at with things. But when you're actually with them, all the dirtiness that's outside of the pictures and what they're presenting to the world is different than what they actually post. So they're posting things like, my vacation is the most awesome thing that ever happened, and here's some beautiful pictures to back that up. And in reality, they're miserable and struggling with something or another. And the disconnect kind of drives me nuts. And it drives me nuts because I think that it then puts pressure on others who are viewing this to have that experience. And they feel like they're not worthy, or they feel like they don't have what it takes to be this person. So what I'll say to that is, when you're seeing this stuff, definitely measure yourself against reality for them instead of measuring yourself against what they're presenting, because they're two different things. I do believe. I don't know anyone that's absolutely perfect. I don't know anyone that's absolutely perfect. Celebrity, any of it. They're all just human beings. We're all just human beings. We have our good and our bad, and perfectionism is not a reality. Now, what I'll say is we can always keep striving to be better, do better, but it's a struggle to really sit down and meet these unrealistic goals. And those that are putting themselves through the misery of that, I feel terrible. Like, so an example of how you would want to put yourself through the misery of that. So let's say that you enjoy something. So like for me, I enjoy dressing up. I enjoy wearing suits. I enjoy wearing dress clothes. And I just enjoy doing it. I have friends that hate dress clothes and will never wear them. And I would say, don't put yourself under that pressure to wear them if it makes you unhappy. But for me, it makes me happy. It makes me happy to dress up. And so do things that make you happy. Do things that drive you forward. But don't feel the pressure of the world. And so when you're measuring these self-help books, a lot of them want to focus on making you fit society. And I think that's terrible. I definitely can appreciate making sure that everyone's like generally in the same place. And what I mean by that is that they're following the laws, that they're doing their due diligence as much as possible. But our society needs to have room for a lot of people's different types of personalities. And you need to have the room for that. You need to really do self-reflection and figure out who and how you want to contribute to the world. And really try to undo all this pressure. And so I think when you're approaching self-help, you got to really do a lot of self-reflection to figure out, who am I? How do I approach this life? And so on and etc. So that being said, that reconciliation, depending on who you are, and of course we're all very different, can be very difficult. For me, it was a very difficult process. It was difficult to do the reconciliation of who I wanted to be and who I am. An example of that is within my career. I wanted to do what all the kind of quote unquote money makers were doing. I wanted to go into development. I wanted to develop some really cool apps, start a company, and do that kind of route. And I have a lot of really good ideas, and someday I may bring some of those ideas to fruition, but I'm not a developer. I can want to be a developer and I can want to do these things, but I'm not passionate about sitting behind a computer and coding all day. I'm just not passionate about it. I want to be passionate about it and I want to see that success because I like the idea that if I developed an app that helped a ton of people, that would be very rewarding, especially if it was lucrative on top of that. The reality is I am not a coder. I know how to code, like I can go and code, but I'm not happy sitting behind a computer doing that. I have a social component to my personality and I need to be working, interacting with people. And I have the ability to go through and do some deep work, but I can't do extensive deep work like you do need to do with development. And so that was a huge reconciliation for me that my career and where I'm at is where my skill set is. And it was disappointing. It was sad. I didn't want to necessarily be where I'm at, but I realized that I would be miserable if I wasn't doing what I'm doing, if I wasn't working with teammates and customers and working through challenges and solving problems and having great interactions and very rewarding experiences. I knew I wouldn't have that if I was a developer. I mean, and not to minimize development, I think that I know people that have very, very rewarding experiences developing, and I'm very happy for them. I just realized that I'm not that personality type, even though I want to be that. So that's an example of kind of the reconciliation you have to do. And some of it is a bit of mourning. There is, for me, in different challenges I've overcome, there's some mourning in realizing that what you want to do or who you want to be or how you are is different than what you want. And I think it's important to reconcile that. And I think it's important to come to peace with that. And definitely, this doesn't discount hard work. So if you're passionate about something, you'll put in the hard work because you're passionate about it. If you're passionate about animals, or if you're passionate about customers, or if you're passionate about development, or if you're passionate about photography, if you're passionate about being a creative, or if you're passionate being a lawyer, or passionate about working with customers and working with patients, or working on doing surgeries, if you're passionate about it, then I say hap at it. Like, that passion will drive the work. And when you're younger, it's difficult because finding that passion can be mysterious because you have a lot of pressures from society to be a certain way. You know who you are because you've lived with yourself for, 16, 18, 20, 25 years. So you got a good general idea of what you like. And I think a lot of people get in the lurch because they feel the pressure of parents, of teachers, of society in regards to what they should be doing and what they're passionate about. And I'll say that if you can be lucrative, make money on your passions, hap at it. And I'll also say that if you can't, but you're very passionate about it, money isn't everything. Like, being passionate about the things you do and how you can contribute to humanity and how you contribute to other people's lives is more important, I think, than money. But I think money is important. I'm not going to discount it because it gives you the ability to have experiences. It gives you the ability to have freedoms that not having money doesn't give you. So if you love traveling, with money you can travel. And that sort of stuff. So definitely, even I feel like even before you dive into self-help, getting a basic understanding of who you are and how you approach things is really important. And really, that's getting to the basics. And so that's kind of an example of how to approach and work through self-help books. So once you kind of get that underlying groundwork done of where you kind of get a good self-understanding, I think diving into self-help books to tweak or to navigate through certain modifications you want to make to work through things, I think is really good. I think that's really good to sit down and do that self-reflection. Now, fear is one of those things that can drive lack of success with self help and lack of success in driving forward. Fear is an interesting characteristic. It definitely is one of those things that for me is very powerful. And I think that fear is more powerful for me because of my past life experiences, just my experiences in my childhood and that sort of stuff kind of makes my fear response maybe be a little higher than other people. Understand how fear shapes your experience in life. Understand, are you afraid of getting up in front of people? Are you afraid of confronting someone? Or are you afraid of putting your art out there for everyone to see? Fear is something that the function of fear, from my understanding anyway, protects you. That's kind of the basic function. So if you're walking through a dark woods at night, you get fearful because there could be predators, there could be so on, etc. And so that makes fear kind of a necessary feeling, because if you didn't have fear and you're just naively walking through the woods and a predator did get you, then that's kind of an evolutionary disadvantage. On the flip side of that, fear can sometimes be misplaced. And that's the challenge that all of us face, is when there isn't like a real repercussion. Like, and I mean real. And what I mean by that is, if you do X thing, will something horribly bad happen? Or is the fear more, in fact, is the fear the highest payment that you're making, that there is nothing bad happening outside of the fear that you're feeling, which feels terrible? In fact, I would argue that sometimes the actual thing that may or may not happen is not as bad as the fear that you go through navigating towards that. So understand fear, understand kind of your emotional state as you're going through challenges, and understand, are there real fears that I need to be actually afraid of? Or like with public speaking, certainly the fear is something that we all feel. It's just a fear of being in front of others. And I think a lot of it underlines judgment and underlies all the kind of challenges. But what I'll say is this: it's just like with any skill set, public speaking is one of those things that, okay, so your fear of judgment and that sort of stuff is there. If you don't practice public speaking, how do you get better at it? So, yes, you may get up there and mess something up. But if you don't get up there at all, then you don't get that opportunity to learn and grow. And that's with anything in life. Sometimes facing your fears can be a very rewarding experience because it builds strong character in you. And the problem is you got to be in a mental space to be able to handle confronting your fears. You got to be in a mental space of being able to go and do that public speaking, or being able to overcome challenges where, society, our society specifically. So you got to picture us like a little village of 100 people. With that 100 people, it's really important that you fit in with the group, because they're going to be the ones that help feed you as well as you helping. They're going to be the ones that help protect you, help keep you clothed, help keep you sheltered. So it's very important to fit into your group. And so outlier behavior was kind of ostracized in those small groups because that could put the group at risk. We're not in these small groups anymore. We're in a large society where that fear of having outlier behavior is, it's just a remnant of that need to fit in. And so I would argue that judgment you feel from public speaking, or the judgment you feel in an interview, or that sort of stuff, that fear of not fitting in, it's not as valid anymore, just because we're a large society and there's room for everyone, as long as you're not breaking the laws and blah, blah, blah. So that's where I would work on confronting fears, but do it in a place where you're ready to confront fears. So let's say you're afraid of public speaking, or you're afraid of getting judged. One thing you can do, so I did this, and it's actually exhilarating, but I had to be in a certain place. I certainly wouldn't do it now, but I did it in the past, and it's a very rewarding experience. So I wanted to be more comfortable pushing boundaries. And so what I did is, I had heard of this challenge called the Nice Guy Discount. And I was kind of rolled my eyes, but I went to a shop I'd never visited, and I was standing outside of it, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to ask for the Nice Guy Discount when I purchase some items. And it makes me extremely uncomfortable to ask. And there isn't any logical reason to be uncomfortable. The clerk can say yes or no, and then you move on. So I went to the shop, I went in, and I forced myself to do it. So at the end, I purchased, a set of items. And then, I went and got them together, worked with the clerk, and got things I needed just to try out. Then I went up to the cashier station and, was chatting, and I'm like, hey, I'm just wondering if you have something like the Nice Guy Discount. And she gave me a funny look. And then she's like, let me look and just see for a moment if we have anything going on right now. And she looked and she's like, hey, I can give you 15% off because you're a new customer. It felt so good. And I don't want to do that all the time. That's not my goal. I mean, I want to support my local businesses. I want to make sure that I'm giving, my business to the businesses that I support. I'm very much, someone who likes to support my local co-op and support the local businesses that are here. And and I'll pay more for things knowing that this is going to support a business. And I'm not uncomfortable with that. Now, other people feel like they need to, haggle and blah, blah, blah. I'm just not that type of personality. And I don't judge that. I think that, there needs to be room for every type of person in our society. I just don't choose to do that. But doing that taught me a lesson. It taught me a lesson. It was kind of a harmless example of just putting yourself out there in a way that you wouldn't normally do. So if you are in a mental space where you could try that, I would recommend trying it. It actually is something I'll remember forever. And I remember just like a freedom that kind of came over me in seeing that I didn't like get judged, and I don't know what I thought was going to happen, but my fear definitely said something bad was going to happen if I did this. I did it and nothing bad happened. And I think that's just a harmless way of doing it, just to put that challenge out there, but you got to be in the right mental space. And with any of this, it's important to understand your mental state and understand kind of where you're at, because without, let's say that you're massively depressed and then you try to do that challenge, your depression will drive a different experience, or it may drive a different experience. So just be cognizant of where you're at and what's going on, and then kind of navigate from there. I would also say that one thing that with fear that is a challenge is just how your mind narrows. It can actually feel pretty claustrophobic. And I would argue that in fear, because I think with fear you get very kind of pinpoint, narrow focused on this thing that's driving you to the fear. So it can actually limit the solutions to get around whatever is making you fearful, just because you get very kind of a linear thinking about whatever you're going through fear. So I think if you can work on overcoming fear and finding peace and calm and finding ways to work through that fear, I think it's helpful in just kind of navigating and seeing the bigger picture. And you can come up with new solutions if you can get through the fear. If you can actually let your mind open up. One thing I would say, meditation, A New Earth by Eckhart Tolle kind of helps with that. Just having that mental perspective where even in the worst of times, you can open your mind up and just come to peace for a moment to give yourself a broader perspective that might open up new opportunities or new solutions to whatever is making you fearful. The other thing I'll talk about is The Night of the Dark Soul. That is something I feel pretty passionate about, actually, because I've gone through this in my past. And really what The Night of the Dark Soul is it's a point where whatever X thing is happening, it all encompasses your life. And you just feel like you're in like a dark valley, you're on a very narrow path, and you just have to keep moving forward, and you don't have control, and the only control you have is moving forward. It's horrible. It's a horrible experience. So when you're going through that Night of the Dark Soul, it can seem so overwhelming. What I'll say is embrace it and be with it and be at peace and breathe. This could be something terrible that's happening to you or to a loved one. This could be a huge judgment is coming down upon you. It could be a lot of different things, and every person's experience and what drives it is uniquely distinctive. The only thing I found that's gotten me through those moments is, one, understanding that's what I'm going through, that this is a moment of the night of the dark soul. Keep moving forward, one foot in front of the other. Embrace it. And really work to navigate the challenge and just be with it. Some things that help are meditation, breathing work, the singing bowls. I do singing bowls, and I really find peace at them. I just play them and find that peace through just the melodic harmonies. Hard work. I think that as you're navigating through this, and if you pick a self-help book, definitely understand it's going to be a lot of hard work. You have to be ready to really sit down and work with it to see the success. And really, life is a constant process of learning and growing, so it never ends. I'll also say that retirement is one of those things I know I'll never have, and I don't have a desire for it. Other people may, but I feel like it's something that I will not want to experience. I just want to be kind of, contributing and doing my thing. And get back to yourself. So everyone has a different path. Like we talked about earlier, examine that and figure out what is the right path for you, and figure out what your passions are and live through those passions. Go back again, approach it in a way that's authentic to you, and understand that circumstances can drive a different experience for you, and be at peace with that. Some books I'm recommending to kind of start that journey is Drive by Daniel Pink. Drive is a book that just talks about what motivates people to be successful and to work. And it's a very, very good book. It helps you understand how you approach and how you can seek success in your life and what drives you for that success. The other book is A New Earth by Eckhart Tolle. This one discusses just mental health perspective, going through and meditating, going through and understanding how to work with the voices in your head. The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron is a great book, especially for those that are just starting out on this journey. I think a lot of writing, a lot of self-reflection is important to see success. So I'm going to wrap up the episode. There's a lot of things I talked about that I'm going to expand upon in future episodes. So I know these episodes are limited in time. And plus, I'm getting tons of interactions because I'm recording on a Tuesday. I'm on PTO today from work, and so I'm recording on a Tuesday late from Sunday. So it's just kind of how it is. Anyway, please reach out. You can email me at contact@howtoloveliving.com. You can check out the website, howtoloveliving.com. I have a blog out there. I'm on Twitter, Instagram, and all the different socials. So definitely reach out. And I would love to hear from you if you have any feedback or if you just want to say hi. Otherwise, have a great week, and we will be talking next week. Thank you.